Welcome to the WTR Small-Cap Spotlight podcast. I'm your host, Tim Gerdeman, Vice Chair and Co-founder and Chief Marketing Officer of Water Tower Research. In today's special Flashcast podcast episode, I'm being joined by my healthcare equity research colleague, Robert Sassoon, to discuss his initiation of coverage report on Anixa Biosciences. Anixa's T-cell innovations show breakthrough potential in solid tumors. Anixa trades on the NASDAQ under ticker symbol ANIX. Good morning, Robert.
Good morning, Tim.
Always great to have you here, Robert. Could you give us a 30,000-foot overview of Anixa Biosciences business model to kick things off?
Yes, Tim. So Anixa Biosciences is a clinical stage biotechnology company with two early stage clinical development programs. One is a novel type of CAR T cell, that is chimeric antigen T cell therapy, known as CERT, that's spelled CER. That is a chimeric endocrine T cell technology for the treatment of terminally ill ovarian cancer patients. The therapy is in an ongoing phase 1 study at the moment. The second program is a breast cancer vaccine designed as both a treatment and prophylactic. The vaccine is being developed to train a patient's T cells to recognize and attack breast cancer cells, especially those from triple negative breast cancer, which is the most aggressive form of that disease. The vaccine recently completed a phase 1 trial, generating outstanding results, which we'll address later. Additionally, the company runs several preclinical vaccine studies to address several intractable high-incident cancers, including ovarian, lung, colon, and prostate cancers.
So a lot of moving parts in terms of the numerous applications they're looking at, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
So let's get into why Anixa's technology platforms are different, starting with their SIR-T cell therapy.
Okay, so Tim, let's we start with the preamble to the answer by explaining that T cells are a major component of the immune system, a type of white blood cell. And there are multiple types of T cells, some that regulate other T cells and other white blood cells, some that coordinate the immune response by signaling and activating other immune cells, and others that directly attack the disease and look to kill it, whether it is an infectious disease or a cancer. However, these T cells need to be taught how to attack the disease. While CAR T cell therapy has revolutionized the treatment of blood cancers in the last decade, and several have been approved since 2017, its application in solid tumors has proved far less successful, and it is this application that Anixa is trying to address. So what's different about CERT? Unlike traditional CAR T therapies that primarily target tumor-associated antigens, Anixa has taken a novel approach by focusing on a highly specific endocrine receptor, the follicle-stimulating hormone, or FSHR. Anixa and its collaborating partner in this program is the Moffitt Cancer Center, identified that this receptor is normally expressed only in the ovaries of a woman and the testes of men, and is absent from most other healthy tissues, making it an exceptionally selective target that minimizes off-tumor toxicity. So Anixa has uniquely engineered T cells to only target the endocrine receptor with follicle-stimulating hormone, which acts as a homing device to direct the T cells to the ovary cancer cells to destroy them. Now, the FSHR receptors which are also present in blood cells that nourish the tumors in the ovaries. So the modified T cells have a dual mechanism of action, whereby they also have an anti-angiogenesis effect, meaning that they inhibit the formation of new blood cells needed by tumors to grow and spread. And a third distinct characteristic is that the Anixa protocol is to deliver the T cells directly into the peritoneum, which is the membrane that lines the abdominal cavity. That's where most ovarian cancer cells remain, rather than into the vein. So it's a localized delivery which reduces the risk of toxicity and unintended consequences. Now, the phase 1 trial is ongoing, but early data has demonstrated an excellent safety profile with no dose-limiting toxicities across 4 cohorts so far, as well as positive anecdotal efficacy outcomes, including one patient who survived 28 months post-treatment against the median survival rate of about a year post-chemo treatment.
That's quite interesting and most encouraging initial results. So let's move on to the breast cancer vaccine. What's different about that program?
So this, Tim, is a really exciting program. It is a little more advanced than the CERT program. Anixa, in collaboration with another well-known and world-renowned institution, the Cleveland Clinic, is developing a first of its kind preventive and therapeutic breast cancer vaccine based on a groundbreaking retired protein strategy. Traditional cancer vaccine research is primarily focused on targeting proteins that are overexpressed on cancer cells, meaning these proteins appear in a much higher abundance on cancer cells compared with healthy cells. That strategy has proved effective for certain therapeutics, but it presents challenges for vaccines. So if a vaccine triggers an immune response against an overexpressed protein, the immune system may also attack healthy cells that express the same protein at lower levels. So that can lead to autoimmune reactions, whether the body continuously targets not only whether the body continuously targets not only breast tissue, but also other organs that naturally express the protein, causing unintended damage to healthy cells. So, an ex Cleveland Clinic researchers have discovered a protein called alpha-lactalbumin, normally present in healthy breast tissue, and only during lactation, and it disappears once nursing ends. But it has shown to appear in many forms of breast cancer, but primarily in triple negative breast cancer, which, as I said, is the most aggressive subtype of the disease, and affects about 10%, 10 to 20, 12% of 21 million women diagnosed with breast cancer in the US each year. So it's not really a small, so it's not definitely not a small number. Anyway, the vaccine under development aims to train the patient's immune system, specifically T cells and B cells, to recognize and destroy the tumor cells in the breast expressing the retired protein.
My recollection, Robert, is that the vaccine program recently reported comprehensive data from the phase 1 vaccine trial. Can you tell us the key highlights and takeaways?
Yeah, you're right. So the data produced was very encouraging. The trial investigated the vaccine across three differentiated cohorts, totaling 35 women. So one group included women who had gone through their triple negative breast cancer journey, which included surgery, chemo, radiation, etc., etc., and were very worried about a recurrence. These women were administered the vaccine to verify that it's safe and identify a maximum tolerated dose that would be used for future prophylactic studies, and also to look for indicators of efficacy. A second group included women who had not been diagnosed with the cancer but were electing to have mastectomies as they carried mutations that made them high risk for triple negative breast cancer in particular. And these women were given the vaccine maybe around 3 to 6 months before the elected mastectomies. The third group was made up of women who had breast cancer, but with the likelihood of recurrence. These women were given the vaccine alongside the current standard of care therapy, which is primarily Keytruda, a checkpoint inhibitor. So the primary objective of the study was to establish the safety and maximum tolerated dose of the vaccine, targeting this alpha lactalbumin protein. And that's, as I say, is only expressed during lactation and in the presence of certain types of breast tumors, notably triple negative breast cancer. Now, the breast cancer vaccine successfully met all the primary endpoints in its completed phase 1 trial, demonstrating rock solid safety at an identified maximum tolerated dose. But not only that, the vaccine also demonstrated a strong immune response. In 74% of the women across the three cohorts, showed a very strong immune response, and the rest more modest immune response, but more modest immune responses. So it's really strongly supported an advancement to a phase 2 study.
So, beyond the unique technology it deploys, what other characteristics differentiate Anixa from its peers?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question, Tim. Unlike many pre-revenue biotech companies, Anixa is enviably well capitalized with a clean, non-dilutive balance sheet structure and cash runway of more than 2 years. Anixa follows a lean, partnership-driven focus on capital efficiency. Uh, so the company minimizes overhead by leveraging collaborations with world-renowned institutions like the Cleveland Clinic and the Moffitt Cancer Center for trials and lab work. Anixa also has been successful in accessing non-dilutive funding sources such as government grants. In fact, the Department of Defense, probably now called the Department of War, funded entirely the the breast cancer vaccine trial, phase one trial. Now, so all these factors have kept annual cash burn at an exceptionally low level for an extended period of time of around $5 to $7 million dollars a year, enabling it to advance its clinical and preclinical programs with little financial pressure. That said, I would expect ANIX's burn rate to increase gradually, particularly with the expected launch of a phase two breast cancer vaccine trial in late 2026, which will involve multiple clinical trials and enroll 80 to 100 women, which is a much larger project. That said, the increase should remain modest as the company continues to collaborate with the Cleveland Clinic and leverage its infrastructure, even though Anixa has assumed full sponsorship of this next phase. Anyway, the company remains committed to pursuing a non-dilutive funding and has applied for additional US grants while engaging in discussions with pharmaceutical companies that could potentially fund portions or all of the clinical studies.
So, thinking as an investor for a moment, Robert, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you a forward-looking question in terms of are there any upcoming milestones investors should be aware of?
Yeah, so key catalysts for this year include the submission of phase two IND for the breast cancer vaccine. That will test the vaccine in a new neoadjuvant setting alongside Keytruda or chemotherapy. It'll involve the enrollment, as I mentioned, of 80 to 100 women, and that's expected to begin later this year. Additionally, the fifth dose escalation code for the CERTI ovarian cancer trial is slated to start around now.
Great. Before we wrap up, Robert, any final thoughts on Anixa?
Yeah, it's worth pointing out that ovarian and breast cancer are multi-billion-dollar market opportunities with significant unmet needs. So Anixa's differentiated immunotherapy and immunoprevention programs aim to close these gaps and position the company for partnerships with pharmaceutical companies that can advance its pipeline to commercialization. So while the company is in the early stages of its clinical development programs, with its enterprise value currently sub $100 million, the company does seem to be conservatively valued relative to competitors in both the cancer vaccine and solid tumor CAR T segments.
Great. Well, thank you for joining us today, Robert, to discuss your initiation of coverage report on Anixa Biosciences, NASDAQ ticker symbol ANIX. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to subscribe, as well as visiting www.watertowerresearch.com to stay up to speed on the company's small cap written research reports, podcasts, fireside chats, industry-specific symposiums, and conference schedules. We will see you next time for another edition of the WTR Small-Cap Spotlight podcast. Finally, a special thanks to the producer and editor of the podcast, Krista Fitzpatrick.